So we'll start the topic. So, as Dr. Carl Misch, the renowned implantologist, has mentioned that almost 100% of my cases of implants need bone grafts. This is a quotation I studied by Carl Misch in a book. There is a book called The Dental Implants and Biological Properties of the Bone Grafts. It's a very good book. It's of Woodhouse Publishing. I will share you in the end. You all of you can go through that book. It's very interesting, and all the techniques are also mentioned very clearly in the book. So coming to the bone grafts. So and today I'm just dealing the bone grafts regarding to the implants only, not regarding to our the regular perio cases or other regenerative cases. Only regarding the implants, I'm going to talk about you people. So bone augmentation prior to or during implant placement can improve the final aesthetics as well as the functional aspect of the patient's restoration. So there is an assortment of materials to be taken and the techniques to be followed, where each expert or the implantologist has to know about the bone grafts and the techniques what are to be followed. That is the reason we are just going through the bone grafts today. So today we'll be dealing about, we'll be discussing about the introduction, indications, graft properties, graft types based on the donor, autografts, allografts, xenografts, alloplast. We'll be having some comparisons regarding the different grafts which we are using, clinical applications of the grafts, and conclusion. Coming to the bone grafts. Bone grafts, as all of you must be knowing, bone grafts are biological structures which have a dynamic phenomenon. So according to GPT, there is a definition given by GPT to the graft. It is a tissue or material which is used to repair a defect or deficiency. The graft can be anything. This is not in pertaining to the bone. So this is a definition given to any tissue or material which is used to repair a defect or deficiency. So mostly we see in trauma cases, cyst, tumors, carcinoma cases where there is a huge defect and there is a grafting done in those cases. So as we are just learning about the implants today, implantology, bone grafts. So here the mechanism involved in bone healing is promoted by bone graft is basically due to the osteogenesis. So there is a new bone formation by the donor cells which are derived from the host or the graft material. Coming to the indications, in implants, maxillary sinus bone lift. We all know after there is an extraction, there is definitely a certain amount of alveolar ridge resorption is there, and even in the maxillary molar region, there is a resorption. And what happens? There is a pneumatization of the sinus. When there is a pneumatization of the sinus, when you place an implant, there is always a possibility of breaching of the implant. So we do maxillary sinus bone lifts. Basically, they are again of learned two types: direct sinus lift, bone lift, and indirect sinus bone lift, which we will be dealing in the next time. So today, just we will know about the bone grafts which we are going to place in sinus bone lift, the properties. And what this bone grafts is used to improve the ridge dimensions. So both in terms of bone volume and bone height, as the implants are placed basically for the functional and aesthetic purpose which the patient approaches. So socket preservation. Socket preservation is very important as after extraction, there is an anatomical variation of the socket, both in terms of width and the height of the socket. So when you place a bone graft, so you preserve the socket, and there are studies showing that after placing the implant, the success rate is more to preserve the socket. And in terms, and when you consider anteriorly, like aesthetic considerations, where the soft tissue is very important, and we need to preserve the soft tissue. And you know that soft tissue always follows the hard tissue. So when we preserve the hard tissue by bone grafting, so we preserve the soft tissue, and there is an aesthetic appearance is good for the patient. So there are other methods like socket shield available nowadays in the anterior region for soft tissue management that we will be dealing next time. So immediate implant placement and first stage surgery are the other indications where the bone grafts are required. So graft properties. Coming to the graft properties, so every material which we use in dentistry, they have to follow certain guidelines, as you know. So they are maybe defined by ADA or FDA. These grafts are generally, I've studied that they are defined by FDA. So they are regulated by FDA. So these grafts should have certain properties when we are using in our implants, like biocompatibility. Biocompatibility is one important factor which we require in bone grafting. Otherwise, there will be a graft rejection due to antigen antibody reaction. Other properties include biodegradable, which these properties again step by step I will be dealing with. Biodegradability, osteoconductive, osteoinductive, structurally similar to the bone. So the graft which we use, it must be structurally similar to the bone so that it serves its function. Easy to use for us as a clinicians, cost effective, should suit our pockets for the economical use, should enter revascularization. Should enter revascularization. This point is very important as the revascularization is a step which dictates whether the graft is successful or not. Because once there is a blood supply and the graft is adopted by the mm, area, the graft is said to be successful. Should be readily available and not require surgical intervention of the second donor site. This basically occurs in autogenous bone grafts. I will be discussing what is autogenous bone graft, where there is surgical intervention. And now I'm discussing about the properties as we had. So we will be knowing some of the properties of bone grafts. Osteoconductive. Osteoconductive is a property of the bone graft. Okay, there was a technical issue. Osteoconductive is a property of the bone graft. This is a mechanism where the bone graft itself serves as a scaffold for the new bone growth, which is perpetuated by the native bone. So ability of a graft material to facilitate angiogenesis, new blood supply, and the subsequent addition, recruitment, and growth of osteogenic precursor cells is important. So which is usually determined by the porosity of the graft. You can see the porosity of the graft. Physical properties of the scaffold, and there are macropores in the bone graft, which helps in the cellular attachment. Nanopores and interconnected porosity are very crucial for the diffusion of nutrients. And if you have a high surface area, so there will be an enhanced protein absorption. Osteoinductive. Osteoinductive is the property of the bone graft where there are undifferentiated pluripotent cells which develop into osteogenic cells, and there is a formation of bone cell lineage, and new bone cells are formed. So mostly you have osteoinductive materials in implant like allografts and autografts. We have frozen dried bone and freeze dried bone allografts, demineralized freeze dried bone allografts. Revascularization and resorption. As I was talking earlier, revascularization and new bone formation determine the success of the new bone graft. Okay, once the bone graft is success, it has to enter into vascularization so that there are new bone cells formed. So in this case, cancellous bone is more better than the cortical bone. Vascular cancellous bone autograft provides rapid revascularization and graft implantation. So rate of new bone formation is associated with the viable bone forming cells, osteoprogenitor cells within the graft. Coming to the graft types based on the donor, we have four types of the grafts based on the donor from where the graft is taken. Autografts, allografts, xenografts, and alloplasts. Autografts are again of two types, extraoral and intraoral. Extraoral, they are harvested from other than our oral cavity, like iliac, crest, tibia, fibula, and ribs. So these are generally used in trauma cases, jaw cysts, or tumors. In those cases, intraorally, mostly we are harvesting it from ramus, tuberosity of the maxilla, where there is a chin exostosis. So ramus, again, you have a cortical bone there. Mostly it is cortical. Good morning. I think someone new has joined. Good morning. Allograft. Coming to the allograft, allografts, so autograft is taken from the same person. It is taken from the same person from one part and it is transplanted to the other part. So like if there is a deficiency in the mandibular region, you take it from ramus and you harvest the bone. It can be either in the form of block or particulates, and then it is placed in the mandibular region. So that is an autograft. Or you can take it in general cases like iliac crest, tibia, or fibula, you are taken and then it is harvested for bone plating in other areas. So that is an autograft. Coming to the allograft, it is taken from the other individuals, but they belong to the same species. So it's like we have in that mineralized freeze-dried bone allograft and demineralized freeze-dried bone allografts. Coming to the xenograft. Xenograft is not the same species. They are taken from the other species. They can be from the bovine, porcine, or equine derived. Alloplasts are the synthetic bone graft materials, which are man-made bone graft materials, which we basically nowadays we are most commonly using. So that I will be telling later slides. So autographs, as already I have mentioned, just will know what is an allograft. You can see allograft, it is taken from the one person and it is harvested to the other person. So there are no viable bone cells. So that is the reason you don't have the osteogenic property. You have only osteoconductive and osteoinductive nature in allografts. So this is same. It has some extracellular matrix which has bone morphogenic proteins. There's a non-collagen which is useful for the bone regeneration. So allografts. So allografts are widely available now, but there is a problem of allografts. As we know that allografts, it is taken from one person to the other. So there is a risk of disease transmission. So how much we process or sterilize, there may be some mishap. So where there may be a carrying of infections like hepatitis HIV, and now we can add COVID also in this. Types of allografts. We have fresh frozen, freeze-dried, demineralized freeze-dried bones, which are available as particulates, morsels, chips, and osteochondrals. Fresh allografts is, as I mentioned, it is the allograft which is taken directly from the individual, and it is transplanted to the. It is directly taken from the individual and it is transplanted to the patient. So as it is not processed, so fresh allograft has more risk of disease transmission. So nowadays, it's not currently used fresh frozen. Then allografts. Coming to the fast freezing allografts, which we have. In this we have demineralized freeze-dried bone allograft. Are you able to hear me, all of you? Okay. Okay, allografts are mostly osteoinductive. As I have already said, they are osteoinductive and osteoconductive in nature, but they don't have the osteogenic potentiality because of lack of viable bone cells. They're the lyophilized grafts, and we have demineralized freeze-dried bone allograft, which has excellent osteoinductive and osteoconductive properties. There, the preparation is done basically by using the decalcifying agents like EDTA or HCl. So the proteins and collagens are exposed, and we can. They have basically BMPs, which are a non-collagen source, and which are very good source of growth factors, which are the growth factor. Bone formation is observed in a good amount by using the allografts. The properties by which these allografts are affected are by the donor age, basically. As I have said that it is taken from one individual and carried to the other. If the donor is of a young age patient who's not having any metabolic disorders like hypertension or diabetes, so there will be a good amount of bone graft available and the bone graft will be of more viable. So processing is basically done by using the decalcifying agents like EDTA or HCl. And storage is very important when you take an allograft. So this we have to take care how the graft is stored when we are using allografts. Sterilization. As I mentioned that these allografts are taken from one individual and transplanted to other individual. Risk of infection is chances is more. So we can sterilize by using gamma radiation or any ethylene oxide chemical agents before utilizing the graft to avoid any infection. Just again a brief thing. Fresh allografts, as I mentioned, it is the graft which is directly placed from the individual. It is taken and it is placed. So there is no processing in this done. There is a high risk of disease transmission, so it's not currently used right now. Fresh frozen, it is again the graft taken from the other individual. It can be either live or cadavers, but here the graft is frozen at minus 80 degrees centigrade and is stored for the long-term storage. Fresh frozen, we can use it for certain time, but still the chances of immunogenicity is more while using the fresh frozen allografts, and disease transmission is also more. Xenografts. Xenografts, these are the grafts which are available, which are taken from the other species, non-human species. These are the grafts which we right now we have to know currently about them, and they are the grafts which we currently are using a lot source. They are non-human sources obtained from animals and submarine corals. Deproteinized, using the deproteinized organic compounds and are removed by the vigorous sterilization, basically. So they lack the major immunogenic factors like cells and extracellular matrix which are present in autografts and the allografts. So which augment for success of the graft incorporation. So there is no question of graft rejection in xenografts as there is no immunogenicity. Mostly they are only osteoconductive. So xenografts, they don't have the property of either osteogenic potentiality or osteoinduction, but the property they possess is only osteoconductive property. They have reasonable rate of the resorption rate, so which is very important for us for an implant to be placed. Xenografts are excellent source of calcium which helps in the bone formation. So different types of bone grafts which are available in xenografts. Yeah. Different types of bone grafts which are available in xenografts are bovine, as I have said, bovine bone graft, which is an organic bone graft. Commercially, it is available as bio-os. We generally use in maxillary sinus augmentation cases. So it doesn't have any osteoinductive property, but has osteoblastic differentiation of osteoprogenitor cells. But again, by research, it has been found, there is a case of bovine spongiform encephalopathy has been found by using the bovine xenograft. That is the one case which has been recorded in one journal. So while using bovine bone grafts, so we can be little careful when we are using in the maxillary sinus augmentation cases. But this is the only one case which has been recorded, maybe because there may be some immunogenicity found regarding to that particular case. The second one we use in the xenografts is the porcine-derived bone grafts. They have osteoconductive property in granular form. So basically, they have the osteoconductive property. There is no osteoinductive and osteogenic property. So there is a they are available in the granular sizes of, as here it is mentioned, like 0.25 to 1 mm size, which is useful in increasing the new vascular growth at the site. So Genos is the commercially available xenograft of porcine in nature. So again, it is available in granular form, which can be utilized in basically in the mandibular anterior region. And again, we have coral derived bone grafts, particular sizes of around 150 to 200 micrometers with an interconnected pore site, which is similar to the cancellous educate initial mechanical strength. So it has basically osteoconductive property as it is a xenograft. So this coral derived, which is having 150 to 200 micrometers strength, it is can be used in posterior side as it is very much similar to the cancellous bone. So we can utilize where there is a requirement of strength, mostly in the posterior region. So this cancellous bone graft can be utilized, which can bear the mechanical load. So coming to the bone graft classification by material sources, here is a table I have just mentioned. Okay. Autograft, it is taken from the patient. So it possesses the true osteogenic living cells with the growth factors. There is no disease transmission in autograft. Just for a brief, again, of the classification of the four grafts. There is no disease transmission as it is taken from the same individual person. So it's very good with the cortical bone. But the disadvantage of this is, as it is an autograft, you have a limited supply of the bone graft. So you cannot take the bone graft as much as you want. So that is a limitation of autograft using bone graft. And while surgery, there can be surgical intervention or infection. So that can happen in the primary region where the graft is taken. Basically, while using autograft, that we have to take care of. And the second thing is there will be a morbidity for the patient as the graft is taken from the localized area. So where there may be pain, patient may suffer from pain or infection. Allografts. Allografts, as I mentioned, it is taken from the other human sources. So basically, it has osteoinductive, osteoconductive property, but no osteogenic property because of absence of viable bone cells. So again, there is a risk of disease transmission. We have already seen that one. So xenografts, it is taken from the other species, mostly bovine. We use, but again, I mentioned there is one case reported of bovine encephalopathy found. So it is only osteoconductive in nature. So there is no osteoinductive and osteogenic property. Alloplast. Alloplasts are the synthetic bone grafts available. These are the synthetic bone grafts available, so there is no risk of disease transmission. So it is only osteoconductive in nature. So there are different types of synthetic bone grafts available: hydroxyapatites, tricalcium phosphates, and bioglasses. So that we will be seeing in the next slides. So alloplast materials, they are mainly osteoconductive. They lack the osteoinductive and osteogenic properties because they don't have the factors, viable factors, and there is no osteoprogenitor cells. So again, in a synthetic biomaterials, we have polymers, ceramics, and metals. We have polyamides like polyglycolic acid and polylactic acid, which are used as polymers. And in ceramics, aluminum oxide, zirconium oxide, and titanium oxide, which are used to repair the large bone defects. Calcium phosphate. There are a few alloplast materials available, which I will be telling you. The first one is the calcium phosphate. It's available as calcium orthophosphate, and it is biocompatible. So there is no immunogenicity or anything. Bioactive, osteoconductive in nature. It is degradable, and it has a potential for tissue ingrowth and integration into the recipient site. So there is no inflammatory reaction as observed while using the calcium phosphate. So there is a good amount of macropores and interconnected porosity available. You can see. But the problem with this calcium phosphate is it has limited biomechanical properties, so it cannot be used where there is where the load bearing area is more. So macropore size is again 150 to 300 micrometers. Ceramics are inorganic, non-metallic materials. The advantage of ceramics is they have the high compressive strength, so high resistance to performance. So they can be utilized in the posterior regions where there is load-bearing area is more basically in the molar region. And in ceramics, as I've already mentioned, like we have bioceramics, zirconia and alumina, which are used for repairing the large defects. Again, as we know, it's an alloplast, so it has only osteoconductive property. It absorbs the protein. It's available in powder, granules, and coatings and cements. So variable degree of biodegradability is there, and particle size and porosity is at a pace which is required for us. So ceramics we can use. Calcium phosphate cement. Calcium phosphate cement is biocompatible, it's moldable, and it is available as a paste which can be injected to fill the irregular bone defects where the normal glass fibers or normal ceramics cannot go. So this injectable paste can go to fill the irregular bone defects. So again, non-stress bearing and area it can be used as it is available in the paste form. So it doesn't have that much strength. So it's used mainly in the mandibular region. Then calcium phosphate ceramics. Calcium phosphate ceramics, coming to calcium phosphate ceramics, you have synthetic apatite hydroxyapatites, which are available as bone fillers commonly. You all must be using them. Is like tricalcium phosphates, which is a non-resorbable, non-porous, osteoconductive, and slowly resorbable. It's very slowly resorbable. So whenever you want to place an implant, you're planning for a longer time, you can use calcium phosphate ceramics. So scaffold for bone formation is formed in a good amount by using the calcium phosphate ceramics. Bioactive glass. Coming to the bioactive glass, this is available as basically as bioactive glass fibers, 70S30C. So it has a potential for faster regeneration. This is our Nova bone, which you all must be using. So it has a low strength, non-load bearing areas. It is utilized basically brittle in nature. It is biocompatible, osteoconductive in nature, faster resorption. It is basically a crystalline in structure. So you can see the glass fibers. It provides better osteointegration after the bone growth. So it is our Nova bone, which is a bioactive glass fibers, which is utilized in comparing the biological properties of the various bone graft materials. The same thing I've just table mentioned. Just you can see the autograft. It has all the three properties. Allograft, it has osteoconduction and osteoinductive property. It lacks the osteogenic property, whereas xenografts and alloplasts have only the osteoconductive property. So these are some of the commercially available bone graft materials. Allografts in the form of, we get it in as Creos, Mineros, xenograft as BioOS, as I have mentioned already, it's bovine derived. Mineros, Alloplast, again you have Nova bone, Perioglass, Reprobone. These are commercially available bone grafts of these different categories. So here, just there is a mention here how the graft is taken depending upon the clinical application. So whether it is taken as a particulates, blocks, or chips. So coming to chin, when you require an horizontal ridge augmentation, basically we take it as only blocks. From the chin, and for the horizontal augmentation, ridge augmentation, basically we take as only blocks from maxillary tuberosity and the chin. So allografts. Allografts, again fresh frozen bone for vertical ridge augmentation. It is taken as only or in-low blocks, but as I mentioned, may be a risk of infection that we have to take care of while using fresh frozen bone. Then we have freeze-dried bone allograft. So here the risk of infection transmission is less. So it is available as onlay blocks, particulates for horizontal and vertical ridge augmentation, and for the sinus floor elevation also we can utilize. Sinus floor elevation, we basically utilize particulates. So again, as a table, you can just make a note. Socket preservation, deep freeze dried bone allograft is utilized. Um, so for vertical ridge augmentation, BIOS, I mentioned. Uh, so porcine and coral bones, as I have already mentioned, they are available as a particulates, so which can be utilized for the sinus floor elevation and socket preservation, basically. Coming to the alloplus, the synthetic biomaterials. So hydroxyapatite, which is available as a particulates, can be utilized in sinus floor elevation and vertical ridge augmentation, basically. Calcium sulfate, which can be utilized for sinus floor elevation, available as again particulates. Tricalcium phosphate, available as particulates, can be utilized for socket preservation and horizontal ridge augmentation. So this is the structure of the bone graft. So where I was talking about the porosity, macropores, interconnected porosity. So this is the structure of the bone graft. So if you have this interconnected porosity, there is a possibility of angiogenesis, diffusion of blood supply. Okay, any questions? This is just the bone grafts. I have given an overview about only the properties of the bone graft, the 4 types of the bone grafts which are available. And you can utilize whichever bone graft according to the clinical site situation and the amount of the bone loss. So as I mentioned that you cannot always use the autograft because the limitation of the autograft, and you require a surgical technique for removing the autologous bone graft from the ramus or the maxillary tuberosity. You need to be So with this, I make a conclusion that each situation calls for individualized considerations in material selection, and each expert has preferred approach for choosing the bone graft materials. According to Mish, allografts have been utilized for the socket preservation. Dr. Han basically utilizes the corticocancellous allograft, which is the best source. Demineralized trabecular bone is not a good source nowadays, not utilized much.